And we've also seen that number go down.
The question is that...
Mr Chair.
I call the Honourable Member Todd McLeay.
Mr Chair, thank you very much. Can I thank the Minister for a very good speech? But more than that, I want to thank her for her commitment over the last almost 3 years looking at employment issues, and particularly work that this government has done around young people who are not employed and finding ways to help them back towards the workforce, or more than that, Mr Chairman, to help them find the courage to put their heads up and go out and have a look at what is happening in the world and to seek skills so they can join the workforce. I want to talk a lot more about that, what the government's done in part over the last 3 years, but also our plans under this budget and where we think we need to head with young people. But before I do that, Mr Chairman, I think it's a very concerning thing for all New Zealanders that the opposition won't take a call on this issue. The opposition are not going to take a call, it seems, on employment in New Zealand, and not going to take a call on youth unemployment. I think they will be taking calls on many other things that are important to them. I don't think it would be wise for us to try and guess what they are. But, Mr Chairman, employment is a very important thing to all people in this Parliament. Youth unemployment is of particular importance to the government and I know to the Minister, and I challenge members of the opposition to stand up, take a call on this part of our debate and tell us about some of their policies moving forward to get young people into work. And I guess, Mr Chairman, if they don't take that call, the public will decide that either it's not of importance to them or they don't have policies in those areas. So the member opposite asked me to talk about some of our policies. Well, I've only got 5 minutes and there has been a huge amount of work done over the last 5 years, as Minister Paula Bennett has had a very focused approach to what we must do with young people in New Zealand. Mr Chairman, some of the reasons that we have had increased unemployment levels for young people in New Zealand is because of the recession. But rather than using that as an excuse, as other parties would in this Parliament, we have merely said that this is an opportunity for us to focus more on young people, to bring greater skills to them, to look at some of the reasons why in many parts of New Zealand youth unemployment has been much higher than it should be. And certainly in the Bay of Plenty we've found youth unemployment has been higher than any of us would want for very many years under a number of governments. Now, why would this be, Mr Chairman? Mr Chairman, that would be in part because of a lack of education, a lack of direction, and the governments previously, over 9 years, had said it was a right for young people to sit on an unemployment benefit. We'd put some fuzzy things around them, but actually that was okay and we could leave them there for a period of time. I, in my electorate in Rotorua last year, had an opportunity, Mr Chairman, to welcome back the first group of young people that went on the LSV scheme. And I invited them to my electoral office and we had a small morning tea. I wanted to actually hear from them about whether they thought it was a good idea, it was a good program or not. And can I say that what I saw, what I learnt, was quite remarkable. Young people that hadn't done well at school, that didn't have a lot of confidence, probably wouldn't look somebody in the eye, were not well placed to get out into the workforce, that would otherwise languish on a benefit for far too long, went off and spent 6 or 8 weeks away on the LSV scheme, came back with a positive attitude, with a plan. I met a young man, the member opposite says a total failure. What's a total failure, I say to the member opposite, is leaving young people to languish on the unemployment benefit and leaving them to languish on the employment benefit and saying that's good enough for them. I met a young man who didn't have so much going for him, came back to Rotorua, and he said to me, he stood up straight and he said to me, "Sir, actually I want a job now." He enjoyed it. He enjoyed the time that he had spent there. I saw him a few months later and he was out in the workforce. Now, it wasn't full-time work, but that young man would not have had the confidence to find work otherwise. And I congratulate the Minister not only for what we've done over the last year, but for the extra money and the extra places, 1,500 people, young people a year to go through the LSV scheme. In Kawerau, a great example of a place that we've heard a lot about on the TV screens of late, can I say to the people of Kawerau, I know they're very proud of their town there. I met another young man that went out on the LSV scheme. That town there had to work quite hard to get at that person on that scheme. And can I say, Mr Chairman, their life in part has turned around. But it's not enough just to let them go through a scheme and say that's good, and then for us to put them back to where they were. This government has a lot more support around that. Thank you to the Minister.
I call the Honourable John Boscawen.